I was sipping lukewarm coffee in my modest kitchen, still half in my pajamas, when I saw James Collier's face on the morning news. The anchor's voice was calm, almost cheerful, like she didn't just announce that the senior claims executive of Mountain Crest Mutual had been arrested at his Aspen vacation home. The footage showed him in a white bathrobe, hands cuffed behind his back, his designer sunglasses still dangling from his chest like some kind of final defiance. I watched in silence as the reporter listed the charges: wire fraud, conspiracy, obstruction, and something about falsified documents. My fingers clenched around the ceramic mug. "They eat people like me for breakfast, huh?" I murmured, not to anyone in particular. There was no joy in seeing him arrested. No gloating. Just a quiet, hard-won peace that came from knowing I hadn't been crazy, I hadn't been negligent, and I definitely hadn't been alone. But to get to that moment I had to walk through fire. Literal fire. Let me take you back to where it all began, before the smoke, before the lies, before James Collier smiled and told me, "We're doing everything we can to help," with that plastic empathy only a professional liar could perfect. Back when I still believed the world was, if not fair, at least honest. I wasn't living a glamorous life, but it was mine and it was steady. My name's Carolyn Grant. I'm 42, a widow of 8 years, and a certified accountant living in a sleepy town in central Colorado where the grocery store clerks still recognize your kids, even after they've grown and gone. My house, a 2-story craftsman with peeling sage paint and a wraparound porch, had belonged to my grandparents before they passed it down to my parents, who then left it to me when they died in a car accident when I was 28. That house wasn't just wood and plaster. It was family history, every creaky stair, every notch in the kitchen doorframe where we marked childhood heights. My late husband, Michael, had proposed to me on that porch. He died too young from a heart attack during a mountain hike. Since then, it had just been me in that house, and I kept it up like a shrine to stability. Every month for 12 years without fail, I mailed my home insurance premium to Mountain Crest Mutual. $312.47. Same amount, never late. They sent me cheerful thank you letters and seasonal fridge magnets. Mountain Crest had a cozy logo. A pine tree hugging a mountain ridge under a rising sun. Trustworthy. Local. Or so I thought. People in town loved to say, "They take care of their own." So I believed them. I didn't shop around. Didn't ask questions. I was too busy managing numbers for other people's businesses and keeping mine quiet and dependable. Then the fire happened. One dry April night. I was baking banana bread at 9 p.m. when I smelled something sharp. Acrid. Like metal and vinegar. I turned around and saw smoke bleeding out from the baseboards near the laundry room. The power flickered. Then popped. In the next 10 minutes my life changed. I grabbed my cat, Oliver, my purse, and ran barefoot into the night, yelling until the neighbors came out. The fire department arrived fast, but not fast enough. The left half of the house, my parents' bedroom, the guest room, and my office was gone. Charred skeletons. My family photos, tax files, the quilt my grandmother made me in college, gone. But I had hope. I had insurance. I'd paid faithfully for over a decade. This is what insurance is for, right? When the fire marshal said it looked like faulty old wiring sparked it, I nodded in stunned silence, thinking, thank God I'm covered. And for a while it seemed I was. Mountain Crest sent a field adjuster within 48 hours. He was kind, efficient. Promised the process would be as smooth as can be. I handed over photos, statements, the fire report. I even printed receipts from the last 12 years of premium payments. The total damage, they estimated, was $380,000. I could repair most of it. Not everything, but enough to make the place livable again. I started sketching out new floor plans. Hope crept back in. Then the denial letter came. One crisp white envelope. No phone call. No apology. Just one paragraph that shattered everything. Your claim has been denied due to non-compliance with policy documentation requirements. Specifically, the supplemental Form 36B regarding electrical inspections was not signed and submitted in accordance with your 2022 policy renewal. I read that line so many times the words stopped making sense. I never saw a Form 36B. I would have signed anything they asked. I'd been nothing but meticulous. I drove straight to Mountain Crest's local office, fists clenched around that letter, ready for answers. And that's when I met James Collier. James Collier was the kind of man who always looked like he was on the verge of selling you a car you didn't need. Tall, silver-haired, and too smooth for someone working in small-town insurance, he greeted me in a navy pinstripe suit that didn't belong anywhere near a mountain town like ours. His handshake was warm, his cologne expensive, and his smile too wide to mean anything genuine. "Miss Grant," he said, with that gentle condescension some men wear like a wristwatch. "I've read your file personally. Please sit." I didn't sit. I handed him the denial letter. "This has to be a mistake. I never saw Form 36B. If I had, I would have signed it." He nodded solemnly. "Yes, well, unfortunately, that form was required with your 2022 renewal packet. Our records show it was sent, digitally and by mail." "Then where's the signature page?" I asked. "If you sent it, wouldn't there be a record of me refusing to sign?" He tilted his head like I was a child asking why the sky is blue. "It's not about refusal, Miss Grant. It's simply that you never returned it. The policy lapsed on that clause. Without that form, we can't process electrical-related damage claims." My skin crawled. "I've been paying for 12 years, I snapped. "And you're telling me one missing form, one that I never even saw, is enough to erase all of that?" James sighed, folding his hands as if he were praying for my understanding. "I understand this is a difficult time. But we're bound by compliance rules. I'm sure you understand, being an accountant." That was the first time he weaponized my profession against me. As if my job meant I should have caught his trick. As if I had failed. I went home and cried for the first time in a long time. Not because of the fire, but because something deeper snapped my faith. Not in the house, not in Mountain Crest, but in people. I trusted this system. And it was gaslighting me with a smile. The worst part? The town pulled away too. Neighbors who once waved now avoided eye contact. The woman who sold me coffee every Thursday? Suddenly too busy to chat. I was starting to feel radioactive. James made sure to be polite in public. Sent me a formal sympathy card. But behind closed doors, when I called for updates, he was cold, clipped, dismissive. One day I confronted him over the phone. "I know I didn't miss that form, James." There was a pause. His voice dropped a register. "Then sue us," he said flat. "We eat people like you for breakfast." Click. That was the moment I stopped being a victim. That was the moment I decided I would bury him. Andrea Holt drove into town like she never left, windows down, aviators on, hair catching wind like a banner announcing trouble for anyone on the wrong side of the truth. We hadn't seen each other in almost 5 years. She was the kind of friend that disappears from your life like summer, then shows up the moment you need warmth again. We'd met in high school, bonded over calculus in the mutual understanding that small towns eat smart girls alive. She went east, got her law degree, made partner in a firm that specialized in insurance litigation. I stayed, married Michael, built a quiet life. And now here she was, standing in the ash-dusted gravel of what used to be my front yard, arms crossed, surveying the half-burned husk of my home like it was a crime scene. "They screwed you," she said flatly. I nodded, lips tight. "Worse," she added, walking through the threshold. "They plan to screw you." I'd emailed her the denial letter and everything I had. She showed up 3 days later with a thick binder and a grim expression. "Carolyn, they've done this before. More than once." She pulled out pages, screenshots of forums, angry blog posts, court filings. All from people who had their claims denied over the same elusive Form 36B. Many settled. Some gave up. 1 or 2 tried to sue and were crushed under legal fees. James Collier's name popped up in almost every one. "And guess what?" she said. "That form? It doesn't exist in any public insurance compliance database. Because it's not standard. It's something they invented." I felt my stomach tighten. "But they said I didn't sign it." She opened her binder again and handed me a printed PDF from their internal system, one I'd requested weeks earlier through a data access request. There, in neat little cursive, was my signature. "I didn't sign that," I said immediately. "That's not my writing." Andrea gave me a tight smile. "I know. That's why I've already sent it to a handwriting analyst." We got the results back 5 days later. It was a forgery. That night, we opened a bottle of whiskey on my porch, the stars above clear and sharp. It was still home, even half-burned. Andrea leaned back in her chair, sipping slowly. "You ready to go to war?" she asked. "I've got nothing left to lose," I said. She shook her head. "Wrong. You've got everything to take back." Andrea didn't just go to war, she brought a damn bulldozer. Within a week, we set up shop at her rented cabin on the edge of town, walls covered in sticky notes, timelines, names, and call logs. It looked like a scene out of a conspiracy thriller, only this time the villain wasn't some shadowy government. It was a regional insurance company that had gotten too comfortable being untouchable. We started with the victims. Emails, online forums, even obituaries. Andrea found over 200 cases in 5 states where Mountain Crest Mutual had denied claim citing non-compliance or documentation issues. At least 38 of them involved electrical fires. Same form, same wording. Half of those people had settled. Quietly. Then came the real break, a former employee named Marissa. She was a claims processor who'd quit after her conscience couldn't take it anymore. She agreed to meet us in Denver, nervous and eyes darting like she expected someone to tail her. When Andrea flashed her credentials and I showed her the forged signature, something broke in Marissa's face. I knew it, she whispered. They forge things. Not always, but when someone's file is flagged as non-recoverable or high payout risk, they start manufacturing failure points. Who flags them? Andrea asked. Marissa didn't hesitate. Collier. She handed over a flash drive. Internal memos. Training calls. I recorded some of them. I don't know if it's enough. It was more than enough. One of the audio files made my blood run cold. It was James laughing. If they want to fight, let them. We eat people like her for breakfast. Andrea looked up at me. He just handed us his throat. We were high on momentum when the hammer dropped. One night, I walked into the cabin to find Andrea white-faced, her laptop frozen mid-sentence. All our files, she whispered. Gone. Everything. Every single document. A data wipe. Not a glitch, deliberate. Panic hit like a punch to the chest. Years of pain and weeks of work evaporated. I felt it. That wave of hopelessness. Like fire all over again. We stayed up all night, frantically calling our contacts. Nothing. Andrea slumped on the floor at 3 a.m. defeated. I sat beside her. Then she blinked. Sat upright. Wait. She pulled out her phone and dug into a cloud backup she'd forgotten about. Not everything, but enough. Marissa's audio files. The memos. Some emails. It wasn't perfect, but it was enough to rebuild. You think they did it? I asked. Andrea nodded. They're scared. That was the moment we knew we had them. They could erase files, but they couldn't erase the truth. Courtroom 2B smelled faintly of dust and old books. The walls were lined with dull oak paneling, the kind that absorbed sound and tension in equal measure. And on the second Monday in September, every pew was packed. I wore a navy suit that didn't quite hide the tremble in my hands. But my voice was steady when I took the stand. Our class action suit, filed under Andrea's name as lead counsel and mine as lead plaintiff, had grown to include 37 named individuals, with more ready to join depending on the verdict. Mountain Crest Mutual had tried everything to delay the proceedings, but the judge wasn't having it. Not with the federal investigation already sniffing around. James Collier sat at the defense table stone-faced. Not smiling now. No cologne, no smug charm. Just a man cornered by his own overconfidence. Andrea paced like a storm in heels. Her opening statement was methodical, calm, factual, deadly. She laid out how Mountain Crest had forged documents, manipulated policyholders, and built an internal system designed not to protect their clients, but to quietly abandon them when it was most profitable. Then came the recordings. The courtroom went still when James's voice echoed through the speakers. It's just math. We tag the ones who won't fight back. Let her sue, we eat people like her for breakfast. A gasp rippled through the room. Even the stenographer's fingers paused. Andrea let the silence stretch, then turned to the jury. This is not just about insurance. This is about dignity. This is about what happens when corporations think they can erase people like Carolyn Grant because it's cheaper than honoring their promise. James tried to argue the tape was taken out of context. That the signature could have been hers. That the memos were misinterpreted internal policy discussions. But every piece fell apart. Marissa testified. The handwriting expert showed side-by-side comparisons. One by one, our fellow victims told their stories. Elderly couples. Young families. Single parents. When it was my turn, I kept it simple. I didn't want to fight. I wanted my home back. I paused. Looked directly at James. You made me feel like I'd failed. Like I was stupid. Like I'd imagined 12 years of loyalty. But I'm here now because I didn't imagine it. And I'm not afraid of you anymore. Andrea smiled softly from her seat. When the jury returned the verdict, it didn't feel triumphant. It felt like exhaling after being underwater too long. Guilty. Civil liability on all counts. Mountain Crest Mutual was ordered to pay full damages, triple penalties under fraud statutes, and restitution to all affected parties. James Collier was arrested in the hallway 2 hours later. I didn't go watch, but I did see it the next morning on the news. Mountain Crest Mutual fell fast. The verdict went viral. Someone had leaked the courtroom audio to a consumer watchdog site, and within hours, James Collier's "We eat people like her for breakfast" quote was plastered across headlines like a confession. By the end of the week, their license had been revoked in Colorado. 2 more states followed suit within a month. Turns out we weren't their only victims, just the loudest. The federal investigation unearthed a web of internal emails showing years of calculated denial strategies. Dozens of employees came forward with horror stories. Mid-level managers who'd been threatened into compliance. IT staff who'd quietly copied folders they'd been ordered to delete. The Department of Justice opened a fraud inquiry. A class action suit in Arizona picked up steam. Investors jumped ship. And their CEO, an aging golden boy with a history of cost-saving innovations, resigned under pressure with a hollow apology that said more about his legal team than any actual remorse. And James? Well, James was the face of it all. His mugshot replaced his LinkedIn photo. That smug, icy control he once wore like a badge? Gone. Stripped down to an orange jumpsuit and the reality that he'd underestimated a middle-aged accountant with nothing left to lose. I watched a news segment one evening, sitting on a new couch in a new apartment, sipping tea I could finally afford again. The anchor turned to the camera and said, "In a surprise twist, the woman who brought the case, Carolyn Grant, has become a quiet symbol of resistance to corporate malpractice." And then the screen cut to my interview. I didn't burn bridges, I said calmly, looking directly at the camera. I lit a fire under the truth. The clip exploded online. People sent emails, letters. Journalists reached out. Survivors from other parts of the country told me they'd thought they were alone. They weren't anymore. Andrea got offers from national firms, all of which she politely declined. "I didn't come home for the headlines," she said. "I came back for you." We toasted with cheap champagne in my new living room. My cat, Oliver, curled on the windowsill, blissfully unaware that his 9 lives had cost me nearly everything and yet somehow led to more. There's a kind of silence that follows catastrophe. Not the eerie kind. Not the absence of sound. I'm talking about the kind that lets you think clearly again after months of constant fight or flight. That's what rebuilding felt like. Not just plaster and wood. Not just bank statements and court victories. But silence, space enough to figure out who I was now that I wasn't clawing to prove my own truth. Mountain Crest's payout came through 4 months after the trial. $380,000 for the house, plus damages and legal costs. Andrea waived her percentage from my portion, said it was personal. I made her take something anyway. She'd saved me. Instead of restoring the old house, I sold the land and bought a modest craftsman across town. Smaller. Easier to maintain. Less haunted. I kept 3 charred bricks from the ruins of the old place, now stacked neatly at the edge of my new garden. A reminder. The town shifted too. Neighbors who had gone silent during the claim ordeal slowly returned. Some offered apologies. Some didn't. I didn't need them to. I wasn't the same woman they'd once waved to from their driveways. That Carolyn would have accepted the silence. This one? She knew what silence was worth. I took a part-time position at a local nonprofit that helps seniors navigate insurance and housing paperwork. Turns out, when you stand up once, people want to know how you did it. I didn't see myself as a crusader. Just someone who knew how to keep receipts. Andrea stayed a few more months. We walked trails, drank coffee, laughed about high school mischief we'd exaggerated in our memories. When she finally returned to Boston, she hugged me tight. "You made this happen," she said. "No," I replied. "We did." The ripple effect took longer to feel, but it came. A year after the trial, a policy reform bill passed through Colorado's legislature, nicknamed Carolyn's Clause. It required all insurance companies operating in the state to make supplemental forms publicly verifiable through a centralized database. No more mystery paperwork. No more disappearing signatures. National outlets ran follow-up stories. I declined most interviews, but I gave one long-form profile to a journalist from The Atlantic. She sat with me in my garden, notebook in hand, genuinely listening. "What do you want people to know?" she asked. "That it's not about the fire," I said. "Not really. It's about what happens when trust burns down. and how long it takes to build yourself back from ash. That quote made the headline. Felt honest. I heard from strangers across the country, single moms, veterans, retired teachers, people who'd been gaslit into silence, people who needed permission to believe in their own memory of events. They thanked me. One letter stayed with me. From a woman in Kansas who'd lost her trailer in a storm and been denied coverage due to incomplete wind inspection forms. She wrote, "I kept thinking maybe I'd screwed something up, that it was my fault. Then I read your story. And I thought, no, maybe I'm not crazy. Maybe I'm just being robbed." That's when I knew. It wasn't just about Mountain Crest anymore. It was about a system built on the hope that people would stay quiet, would blame themselves, would go away. And it was about proving them wrong. It's spring again. Oliver naps in a sunbeam that stretches across the floor of my new kitchen. White tile, soft green cabinets, windows that let the mountains spill in like a painting. I bake now. A lot. Mostly banana bread. Sometimes I burn it on purpose just to remind myself I can start over without fear. The house smells like cinnamon and calm. Every once in a while, someone stops me at the market or on the street. "You're Carolyn Grant, right? From the case." And I nod. Because I am. But I'm also the woman who weeds her garden in the evenings, who volunteers on Tuesdays, who laughs now without wondering who's listening for a weakness. Justice didn't erase the pain, but it gave me something else, the right to carry it without shame. Andrea still visits and we joke about writing a book. She says I'd be the main character, but I think she's wrong. I think the real story was never about me. It was about every person who thought they didn't matter because someone in a suit told them so. If I've learned anything from this, it's this. Systems don't fail you by accident. They are built to break you quietly. And the bravest thing you can do is refuse to disappear. When the fire took half my home, I thought I'd lost everything. But the truth is, fire just shows you what can't be burned. And that's where I rebuilt.